7:14. What a beautiful morning outside. Wow. Why don't we just cancel the show and go outside, Shawn? Judge Shawn Womack's here today, and of course he's running for Supreme Court. Well, that's a good move. Glad to see you running for Supreme Court.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you letting me be here and visit with you this morning about it.
Well, for folks that don't know you, tell us a little bit about your background. Is that you were fixing to say something before I...
Well, I was going to say, and also thank you for providing some of the technical support for our announcement a couple weeks ago.
Oh, sure. Glad to do it, yeah.
Well, a little bit about my background. I am currently a circuit judge, have been for about 6.5 years. I cover 4 counties in North Arkansas, live in Baxter County, and also have Marion, Boone, and Newton counties in my circuit. Before that, I was in the legislature for 10 years, served in both the House and the Senate. 2 weeks ago today, we made the announcement that I'm running for the Arkansas Supreme Court next year, and so for the last 14 days we've been going lights out. So we've been campaigning around the state. We've been in 7 counties so far. Trying to work around that work schedule, that day job that we still have, but also on those nights and weekends getting to.
Sure.
Different counties, different events, and so just having a good time meeting people and starting to engage with voters for next year.
So now that you're back on the campaign trail, does it bring back fond memories?
It does. it really does. In fact, I was thinking this morning, your listeners today listen not only on the radio but on the internet. They can go and check the website and click a button and hear something that you recorded days or weeks earlier. They can listen to all over the world on an app. What they may not know about Del Hoffman, though, is that you have some pretty serious technical skills from the old school. I can remember sitting in your living room 17 years ago with the old reel-to-reel.
I still have those machines.
Dubbing the music over the sound and trying to put together some of those very early commercials for my House of Representatives race back in 1998.
Yeah.
But no, in the last 2 weeks we've been out. We launched in 2 places. We wanted to go to Little Rock and we wanted to do it in Mountain Home. This is home, and so we wanted to do the announcement here. We also went back where I worked for so many years at the Capitol, and so we announced at the old Supreme Court room at the Arkansas Capitol. Had a lot of friends from Central Arkansas there, and actually it wasn't originally planned this way, but the timing worked out that my announcement was the same day as the beginning of the special session. So we really had friends from all over the state there that served in the legislature. People from Northwest Arkansas, South Arkansas, Northeast Arkansas, just all over. Then we came back to Mountain Home, made the announcement that evening. Had a good crowd here, a lot of friends
Good to see
and
the
supporters.
supporters here at Baxter County Courthouse. Yeah.
Brings back memories when I first announced. It was actually in the fall of '97 for the '98 race. We did it right there on those same steps at the Baxter County Courthouse, and so a lot of things have changed in 18 years, but in some ways a lot has stayed the same as well.
Yeah. Do you ever look back on your career both in the House and Senate? How long were you in the House and the Senate?
I was in the House for 4 years and the Senate for 6 years, and now it doesn't really seem like it, but I've been a judge for 6.5 years, so that's actually the longest portion of my time in any one position at this point.
You look back and think, wow, I did a good job on this, or boy, I missed the boat here. I give you an example of, everybody knows I'm a St. Louis Cardinal baseball fan. And occasionally when you listen to the Cardinal Baseball Network, they'll replay from 1985 Ozzie Smith's home run where Jack Buck says, "Go crazy, folks, go crazy." If you hear Jack Buck talk about it, he says, "I blew that call." But now it's one of the most famous baseball calls in history, next to what they call the catch back in 50-something, 56, But, or when the Giants won the pennant back when they were still in New York. But Jack Buck even thought, "I blew that call," thinking, "Go crazy, folks," because it was 5:30, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and all of a sudden horns all over the city of St. Louis were going off. It was being played in there. But have you ever thought, "Oh my goodness, I blew that," or "I did that wrong," or something like that? Even Jack Buck thinking that call was so stupid, but yet it's now the most famous call I think he's ever made. Do you ever have a moment like that where you reflect on something like, "Boy, I messed that up," and it's really something good? Or something good where it might be bad? I don't know.
Oh, sure. I mean, 10 years in the legislature, I cast thousands of votes. So there's always something, I kind of wish I would have had that one back, or I'm really glad I did this. I voted for that or sponsored that bill. One thing that I look back now, as legislators, you kind of come and go so quickly with term limits and the way things work out that a lot of times you vote for something and you never get to see the final outcome. And I put on my Facebook page the other day, I was over in Jonesboro this weekend and on the campus at Arkansas State and got to take a tour of a new building. And Shane Broadway, who was the Speaker of the House when I was in the House of Representatives, we served in both the House and the Senate together, reminded me, he said, we started funding for this building in 2001 when we were in the House together. It's going to open this summer. So it's kind of neat to see something actually come to fruition, because so often, you cast a vote on a policy or something that you're funding or, something of that nature, and you never really get to see how it works out. But, there are a lot of things that we're seeing today that have kind of developed. Probably one of the things I'm most proud, especially as it relates to the court system, is I was the chair of the task force that came up with the plan to implement the district courts into really a third tier of our court system and take them from the old municipal part-time judges where, someone was your lawyer today and your judge tomorrow in the same week, to actually having full-time professional district court judges doing that job. And we started that as a pilot program. We're seeing the fruit of that today with
well,
those
let's back
judges.
up. Let's elaborate on that, because that's a good point. I can remember back in those days. How long ago was that? 10. I remember when that. Yeah, literally. Yeah. Can you imagine having that be in the attorney's? Well, I can't hear it here because I'm the judge. You walk out of the attorney's office, put on robe, you can't give him a job. I remember that.
Right. And in some of the smaller counties, we're just now starting to transition beyond that. But some of the smaller counties, you might have someone who was the city attorney in one town and the municipal judge in the other. So he might be prosecuting your speeding ticket today and then representing somebody on the opposite side of a land dispute in a different court as an attorney, or sitting as a judge the next day. So, that fixed some of those issues and really tried to make the court system more professional at all levels. You ask how long that was. We started doing that in the 05, 06 time frame, and then the legislation passed in 07. We started with a handful of pilot counties, including Baxter County and Boone County here in our part of the state. That is now developing into several counties around the state.
That was a good move. Yeah. How can I say this? Could an attorney kind of get himself tied in a knot, so to speak? I mean, if you're representing one client, but yet having to judge somebody else, look, I don't want to call it unethical because I don't think there's ethics involved, but it just seems like it's kind of that uncomfortable situation.
It created a lot of conflict situations. So there were cases where you either had a lot of recusals or you should have had recusals and maybe didn't. In some of the smaller counties, you may not have people to sit in. So, there were probably some things where maybe you had somebody that should have recused, but they didn't as a practical matter because there was nobody there. So, trying to fix some of those things, I think that really helped that system when we made those changes.
Now, this is going to be the dumbest question you've been asked in your career, but who else but a judge on a bench would know? Has there ever been, and is there still anything like a so-called boss hog and Roscoe P. Coltrane type of government?
Yes, certainly not in anything that I've seen. You have areas where some of the local officials probably have more influence than maybe they should, but you think back to those old TV shows where they served in several different roles and it was the same person. You really don't see that anymore. But
it's even on Andy Griffith. I mean, as funny as that show is, we'll try the ticket now, and he takes the little sign that says sheriff, he whips it around and says justice of the peace,
right?
Gets the gavel out. Wait, you're the judge? That's right.
And one of the things as lawyers, as judges, that we need to try to do is try to make the profession more professional. Mm-hmm. Try to make sure that people can look at what we're doing as a system and say, whether I won or lost, I got a fair trial. Whether I like the outcome, I was treated fairly, the process was fair, the rules were complied with. And I think if we do that, then at the end of the day, we've done our job. We've done a good job. And so, people may not always like the outcome, but people should have their day in court and feel like they're coming to that process fairly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow. Some of when I ask a question that you can't answer, now let me explain. Running for any type of judge position, judicial position, whether you're local or Supreme Court, you're limited on the funds you can raise. You're limited on things that you can even talk about because this is nonpartisan.
Right. There are two things at play. Judges are nonpartisan. That happened after the people voted for what became Amendment 80 in the year 2000. Made judges nonpartisan, among other things. The other thing at play are the ethical rules. We call them judicial canons. And so as judges and as judicial candidates, we have different rules from any other political candidates. In other words, or for example, we can't announce publicly for office until 1 year before the election. We can't raise money until 6 months before the election. Judicial candidates can't directly ask for money. We have to do that through a campaign committee. We're limited in what we can talk about. We can't comment on anything that is either pending in a court right now or is likely to come before us if we do so in a way that might prejudice that issue. So in other words, when I was running for the legislature, I might say, if you'll vote for me, I'll try to pass this bill and do X, Y, and Z. But as a judge, I can tell you I'll try to enforce the rules. I'll try to make sure that everybody gets a fair hearing, that everybody has their day in court. But I can't tell you as a judge, if you vote for me, I will rule this way. Because if I do, then I'm breaching the ethics rules and can be disciplined for that.
Yeah. Wow. Probably one of the best examples of political ethics that I've ever seen was our friend Justice Rhonda Wood when she was running for Supreme Court. She was here in Baxter County. Yeah, go ahead and close the door. Yeah. We were at one of the local restaurants, and somebody wanted to hand her a contribution, pulled out a $50 bill. And she didn't quite see the $50 bill fast enough, and she went to shake the gentleman's hand, and she saw the money, and immediately both of her hands went behind her back and says, I can't even touch that. I mean, it was just seeing that judicial instinct in Justice Wood of being honest. I can't even touch that. I mean, it was just like a switch came on. I said, well, if it's okay, I'll hold the contribution until the proper time. So the gentleman handed me the 50, which I waited till the appropriate time, then turned it into a cashier's check and mailed it to the campaign fund. But I mean, she couldn't say, she just couldn't even touch the $50 bill.
And that's one of the things that makes it a little bit difficult when you're campaigning, because people don't necessarily understand that we are governed by those rules. And for instance, I was over in Highland the other day, and I was speaking to a group in a restaurant. But before the speech, I went out and got permission of the restaurant owner and went out and visited with some of the people that were in there dining that night. And this guy started asking me questions, and I tried to explain to him, well, if I answer that question, I'll be in violation of the rules. And it frustrated him, and frankly, it frustrates me. But those are in place. Those rules are in place to safeguard the judicial system, because number one, we don't want to say something that will prejudice something. Number two, we don't want to do something that will create the appearance of impropriety, and that's where some of the fundraising rules come in. If it looks like a judge is being swayed by campaign contributions, that creates an appearance that you don't want them to have.
No. Got a final minute before we go to break. Let's talk a little bit real quick about the website. We're going to go to the news break here in about 60 seconds, but it's judgewomack.com. You want to talk a little bit about the website before we go to break? Yeah,
one thing we're doing this year is, as opposed to some of my earlier campaigns, social media and the digital access that we have is so much greater. So we do have the website. It's got my bio on it. It's www.judgewomack.com. We also have a Facebook page. If you go like our Facebook page, it's Judge Shawn Womack. You can follow us on Twitter, and that's at Judge Womack. And so one of the things we're trying to do is develop a little bit of that social media following, so we can post updates from the campaign. We can maybe pass along stories related to the judiciary as they come along. But if we can get some likes on that Facebook page, we can have a way to communicate with people as we get further into the campaign.
And we're visiting with Judge Shawn Womack. You can check out the website, www.judgewomack.com, and of course on Facebook. Time for the news. We will be right back. 7:35. What a beautiful day. Ron's going to take a quick picture. We can take a picture while we're on there. Theme song's playing. Beautiful day outside. Did you get it, Ron?
I don't know. I pushed it lightly.
That's a fancy phone.
See what you got.
Let's see. If we've got a picture here, we'll put it up on Facebook later. That'll work. Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, thanks,
Sure.
Ron. We'd better wish our Attorney General happy birthday.
Oh, was it Leslie's birthday
It's
today?
Leslie's birthday today. We talked about her last week.
Well, happy birthday, Attorney General Rutledge.
Yeah, doing a great job. Anyway, I don't know if we can discuss this, and you'll have to let me know. The disrespect for police all across the country. We saw the video in the news last night. A pool party gets unruly. Security calls the police. And, of course, here's a policeman trying to get a 15-year-old girl. Of course, she's the opposite race of the policeman, so to speak. Where did we lose the respect?
Well, I don't know that I should comment on that specific case, but just in general, I think that we have a problem with authority in this country. We have people who we've seen multiple generations now growing up without intact families, without the fathers being involved, without the grandparents being around or involved. Kids that are born out of wedlock, that are separated from their family, and so they don't grow up in a household like we used to, where when you get out of line, you get in trouble. When you do something wrong, you get disciplined. And so there has been an erosion of the respect for authority and the respect for the rule of law, and kids today do stuff that I know you wouldn't have let your kids get away with, right. and I don't, and I certainly didn't get away with when I was younger, and that is transitioning into not only the rebellious teenagers that you have somewhat naturally, but that has really eroded into the adult society, where there's a lack of authority for police, for anyone in any type of authority position, and it's really unfortunate because it's creating a very dangerous situation for law enforcement. They've got a hard enough job as it is, but now you have people in the media, people who are in this industry of stirring things up for profit.
Yeah.
And they go out and they stir people up against the police, and we've seen several since the Ferguson thing. We've seen several police officers that have been targeted and killed simply because they're police officers.
Right. The situation in New York, where two were basically just assassinated or executed right there in their
sitting in their
patrol
car.
Yeah. Is this a reflection of what I call the Woodstock generation? You go back to 1969. I know that's almost 50 years ago, but are we reaping the so-called benefits of what we sowed in those days? And we can get into the Watergate era of Richard Nixon and the war protest, the Vietnam era. This is similar to what we had in that time frame. I remember the riots in the 60s in Chicago after the 68 Democratic Convention. That turned into that was terrible. Is this a reflection on some of that past history, you think?
Yeah, I think to some extent it may be. Certainly the idea that we all want our right to do whatever we want to do, we tend to lose sight of the fact that with every right comes some responsibility. And, as we see society really just kind of go into that mindset that I want to do this, you can't stop me from doing it, and so if you try to enforce the rules, you're the bad guy. I think that has been a growing sentiment over the years, and we've moved from a situation where when someone did the wrong thing, that was a shameful act, and their friends would correct them, their family would correct them, their parents or grandparents would correct them, to you do the wrong thing and somebody thinks it's funny and puts you up on YouTube, and so somebody else does the wrong thing, and people that engage in bad behavior tend to feel more comfortable around other people that engage in bad behavior, and that leads to somewhat of that groupthink that gets us to the situation where maybe we're seeing today, where
have we turned bad behavior into comedy? Now, let me explain what I'm asking here. Years ago, I was watching, I think it was a Disney Channel thing, where 2 or 3 boys and 2 or 3 girls wanted to do something, but they knew it was wrong. And their dad had said, no, you can't do that. That's wrong. You can't do that. But they thought it was still right, so they had to kind of conjure up a little Lucy and Ethel type of plan to go in the back door to do what they wanted to do. And in all of these TV shows, it's always where Dad either backs down and says, well, okay, and then they form a little rock and roll band to sing about what happened. Or it could be like a Home Improvement where the dad is always the joker and tearing things up and he's not respected. So we've seen the disrespect of the father figure on television. And then we add that to the free sex type of thing at Woodstock in '69 and what happened 25 years later that my brother was involved up there. That it was unbelievable what was going on, where they actually sat and watched a hangar burn down, because people were setting fires. We're not that kind of people. At least I don't think we are. And so, having Al Sharpton show up in St. Louis, come on, people. Let Ferguson, Missouri handle that. We don't need the president. We don't need Sharpton. We don't need senators from other states coming in here on the federal level. Let Ferguson handle it.
Well, and, like I said, you get into those situations where somebody does something and then a bunch of people want to jump on to stir that pot.
Yeah.
Just for the sake of stirring the pot.
Yeah.
And, probably when you break it down, one of the basic ways or the easiest ways to explain it is we've gone outside of our boundaries. We used to kind of have boundaries that this is acceptable and this is not. And as we, and sometimes we need to be able to expand those boundaries as things change, but when we totally disregard them, when we break them just for the sake of breaking them, when we get outside of what we ought to be doing, kind of the do-right rule. Don't hurt other people, don't take their stuff, don't break their things. And if you took those three things out of the equation, that takes away a lot of your problems that you're talking about.
Now, when you visited with Curtis Coleman on the Era One TV program, saw bits and pieces of those clips on Facebook, and the subject there was how some judges are actually turning their opinions into law. And I think we see this a lot with the EPA. We're going to be talking with, I forget who it is, but the EPA is making some regulation, trying to come up with a regulation on clean coal and trying to prohibit the use of coal in generating electricity in those states like Arkansas that do. Your comments were right on target. I want you to go back to, if you can remember what you said with Curtis on that interview about how you approach the judicial bench on the Supreme Court in making the decision.
Sure. And, one of the things that we've talked about in the campaign, and this will be kind of a theme of the campaign, is that there's a separation of powers that exists, and I believe strongly in that separation of powers with the three branches of government all having their role. And it goes back to our discussion a few minutes ago about the behavior of people in general, the boundaries issue. The court has a set of boundaries, the legislature has a set of boundaries, the executive branch has a set of boundaries. And when we have those checks and balances and everyone does what they're supposed to be doing, the system works the way that it really should. And occasionally when one branch or the other gets out of their boundaries, then there's that check on it to where, the other branch has a role to play. But, I think the way I put it with the interview with Curtis was that, I've been in the legislature. I've been in the policy-making role. I really enjoyed that, but when I left that, I hung that hat up and put on a different hat. And the hat of the referee is, really the enforcer of the rules of procedure, the enforcer of the law as it applies to the facts and the cases that come before us. It's not a policy branch anymore. It's essentially the referee. It's the place where you go and make sure that the rules have been followed. And so what I told him is, I know the role of the legislature, I know the role of the courts, but most importantly, I know the difference. And what I mean by that is that you have a lot of judges that wish they were policymakers and act as if they're policymakers, and that's not what a judge was intended to do.
Do you see that in the U.S. Supreme Court right now in these days?
Yeah, I think you do, and I think we have for a long time. And one of the biggest events we've had in Mountain Home in years was when we had U.S. Supreme Court Justice Scalia here back in April. It was just a phenomenal event over the college, but one of the things he talked about was, the Constitution means what it means. It means what the words say, and we have people who are in the role of judge who sometimes want to add things to it and
Yeah.
take things away from it and kind of make it whatever they want it to be at the moment. And that's where I think we get into some danger.
Well, Justice Rhonda Wood was here that morning, and I asked a particular question. And she said, "Do you remember diagramming sentences in junior high school and high school in language and grammar class?" I said, "Well, yeah." I said, "We literally have to take that and diagram, and so we can break the sentence down to get the actual meaning of that law."
And that's one area where I think my background in the legislature
Yeah.
will help, because one of the things that the Supreme Court does is they interpret statutes. What does that statute mean? What was the legislative intent of that statute?
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
what should the policy
There we
be,
go. Yeah.
but what did the legislature, the elected representatives of the people, mean when they passed that? And so, I've been through the process of making those laws where you look, okay, we need a comma here, we need a shall here versus a may. How does that affect the rest of the statute? So from that standpoint, analyzing the breakdown of the statutory language, I think that background will help me on the court.
You bet.
The Supreme Court in Arkansas has what we call original jurisdiction over a handful of issues. All of the issues of constitutional interpretation go to the Supreme Court instead of the lower Court of Appeals. Those issues pertaining to election law and election process and procedure, what gets on the ballot, are those signatures significant or sufficient enough to get an initiative on the ballot? Anything dealing with elected officials, those what we call writs of mandamus, where we say, Mr. Elected Official, you're not doing your job right and you have to do this. The bigger criminal cases that involve the death penalty or life imprisonment, so things like that.
Visiting with Judge Shawn Womack, who's now a candidate for Supreme Court. Quick break. Be right back. 7:50 on a beautiful day in north central Arkansas, south central Missouri. We're visiting with Judge Shawn Womack. You can check out the website, judgewomack.com, and it's Judge Shawn Womack on Facebook. Did you add that already?
It's posting right now, so here in about 30 seconds, actually, it just posted, so we're good. So if you go to Judge Shawn Womack on Facebook, like that page, you'll be able to see the shot of Dale and I here in the studio this morning.
Well, the legislature just changed the primary in that special session. Now it's not, you would have been elected, hopefully, in May. Now we move it up to March. How does that affect your campaign?
In my race, it kind of depends on whether it's just a two-person race or a three or more person race. Assuming that it's a two-person race, or if it's a multi-person race that can be won with a majority out of a three or more person race, it shortens my race. If there's a runoff, then my race would be lengthened. But judicial races, you don't see that often. I had that in 2008 where we had three candidates and the top two had to go to a runoff, which falls back to November. But for my race this time, what it does is it takes us from May 24th back to March 1st. It actually shortens my race by almost 3 months. The other thing it does is, just from a process standpoint, under the judicial rules, we can't raise money until 6 months before the election. So with the old date, our fundraising cycle would have started the week of Thanksgiving, which is not when people want to be bothered with
Political.
folks trying to raise money. The way it is now, that'll move it back into September. So
You can raise some pretty good money before Thanksgiving, because from the week of Thanksgiving till the end of the year, that's pretty well dead campaign time, really.
yeah,
Because people aren't focused on that.
people are with their family having turkey and then their Christmas shopping, and the business people are wrapping up their end of the year stuff for their business. Families are trying to get together for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and the last thing they want is some guy running for office in the mix of all that. So for judges, it kind of takes us out of the mix. Now for some of the other races, it actually kind of throws them maybe into that winter season, that holiday season a little bit more. So.
Well, we've got 3 minutes left. I'm going to ask you the same questions that I've asked, like Governor Hutchinson and Tim Griffin, people like that. You got a genie in a bottle with 3 wishes. As a judge on the Supreme Court, what would those wishes be?
I guess probably the first one would be that, and this would be with any job, if I'm fortunate enough to get there, to make sure that I do a good job, that the process works, that the people can look at what we're doing, respect that process, and feel like the rule of law is being upheld, and that the Constitution is being upheld. before that, and probably a little more selfish, just throughout the election, that will go well, that we'll be able to connect with voters, that we'll be able to get through this process successfully. And I've been through 7 contested races, and you've been there with me through a lot of those races, and so that even in a 1-county race, that can be a challenge. The big issue for us here is this is a 75-county race. This is statewide. So, already just in 2 weeks, we've been in Jonesboro and Little Rock and Mountain View and Highland, and 7 counties are already in less than 2 weeks. That third wish, and I think this is true for anyone in any profession. You pray for wisdom. You want to, listen and understand and make good decisions. And I think we want that out of any judge, that we look at the facts in front of us, that we apply the law, that, and to your earlier points, in the court system, we never run out of customers because people always have problems. They have disputes between them, and we have people doing things they shouldn't be doing. As much as we want to do those cases and do them right, there are a lot of cases in the court system we sure wish we never had to see, because when we see those cases, that means there's something wrong in somebody's life. So, I guess my third wish would be, for people to kind of play within those boundaries we talked about, to make sure that they're living their life in a way that they minimize their interaction with the court.
You're the type of person that hates to see a life destroyed by a bad decision.
Oh, absolutely. And unfortunately, we see it all the time, whether it's on the criminal side, where you're affecting not only someone else's life that you're hurting as the victim, but also your own, because, you get convicted of a felony, good luck finding a job somewhere. But also, we see it a lot on the domestic relations side. You're going through some family issue, and it's not handled well, and it turns into a lot bigger of a problem for the people involved. The civil side, people that do things that are negligent and hurt other folks. So,
we're visiting with Judge Shawn Womack, and of course he's a candidate now for Supreme Court. Check out the website, www.judgewomack.com, on Facebook, Judge Shawn Womack, where he just posted our picture, where we're right here in the studio. And we hope to hear quite a bit more from you. We'll be inviting you back from time to time. And I know this is early, but keep in the back of your mind, first part of March, time to be electing a judge. So real quick, a final thought. The theme song's playing. We got just a second.
Matt, you mentioned the website and the Facebook. In just a minute, I'm going to post the picture on Twitter. The campaign account on Twitter is @JudgeWomack. I would appreciate the vote of your listeners, and I thank you for the airtime today.
That wraps it up. We'll be back tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody.